All right, let's dive right into How to Talk to Anyone. It's that classic communication guide by Leil Lowndes.
Published back in '99, yeah.
But it's packed with 92 techniques, so much good stuff. Today, we're pulling out the absolute gold for you. Those insights that can really, truly make you a better communicator.
That's the goal. Lowndes' whole idea is that these super successful people, those big winners, they use very specific strategies when they're talking to others. And get this, anyone can learn these strategies.
So we're like cracking the code of charisma.
Exactly.
And she makes a super interesting point right at the beginning about first impressions.
Oh, yeah. She's big on first impressions. You've got 10 seconds? Maybe less?
10 seconds. Wow, okay.
To make a positive impact, it's almost like a holograph, she says. Like that first impression, it gets etched in someone's mind. It just colors everything, how they see you from then on.
So every interaction is like a mini performance. And those first few seconds really set the stage.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that Lowndes argues that in those moments, nonverbals can actually be more important than what you say.
Absolutely. She talks about, for example, the power of a smile, but not just any smile.
Okay, there's a technique.
There is. It's called the flooding smile.
Flooding smile.
Flooding smile. Imagine this. You make eye contact with someone, pause for just a second, and then you let this warm, genuine smile spread across your face.
Okay.
It's like you're making that smile just for them. And that makes you more, credible, instantly. You seem more trustworthy and likable.
Oh, so it's about being deliberate.
Right.
Not just a generic grin. It's a personalized warmth,
I like that. Yeah, personalized. Now, what about eye contact?
Oh, eye contact's huge.
Yeah.
Lowndes has these techniques called sticky eyes and epoxy eyes. Intense.
Sticky eyes first. That's all about holding really strong eye contact to create a connection. It shows intelligence, when someone can't meet your gaze.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like they're hiding something. But when you hold that gaze confidently, that shows confidence, trustworthiness.
Like you're saying, I'm here, I'm engaged, I'm interested, without saying a word.
Yes. Now, epoxy eyes, that's next level.
Oh.
It's a more intense gaze, It's to really, truly captivate. But be careful. You got to use it strategically. Sometimes it can be seen as too aggressive.
Oh, it's a power move.
Yes.
But you got to be aware. So we talked about facial expressions, but Lowndes, she moves on to posture, right?
Yeah.
And this whole chapter called Hang by Your Teeth.
Oh, I love that title. She's basically saying good posture, it's more than just looking good. It projects confidence, success.
Interesting.
She uses the analogy of the Wallendas, the high-wire acrobats.
Oh, yeah.
Their lives depend on perfect balance posture. And in the same way, good posture makes us seem more, competent, like we've got it together.
So even if we're not walking on a tightrope, posture speaks volumes.
Exactly. It creates that knee-jerk reaction. Respect, admiration. Now, big baby pivot.
Oh, yeah, the big baby pivot. That sounds interesting.
It's all about showing someone they have your full, undivided attention.
How do you do that?
Do you know how babies turn their whole body towards someone they like? It's total focus, right? Pure interest, you can do that too. When you meet someone, turn your body fully towards them as if they're the only person.
Makes them feel special.
Exactly. Important. Seen.
Now imagine walking into a room full of strangers. I get nervous just thinking about it.
You sure?
Lowndes, she has this technique called the hello old friend approach.
Oh, I like that one. Instead of seeing strangers, what if you pictured them as old friends? Your body language changes. You seem more approachable, welcoming.
Almost like you're tricking your brain to feel more relaxed.
Maybe. And you know what? It even works across languages.
Right.
Lowndes uses it with people she can't even speak to.
A universal approach. Now, so many people fidget, especially when they're nervous. Does Lowndes talk about that?
Oh, definitely. She says fidgeting, it just kills your credibility.
Why is that?
Think about those lie detector tests, right?
Right.
They're picking up on those tiny movements. It's like your body's saying something's off. So if you want to project confidence, trustworthiness, you got to keep those fidgets in check.
So our bodies betray us, even when we're trying to project a certain image.
They do.
Now, there's this whole story about Clever Hans. I'm not sure if I know this one.
Clever Hans. The horse who could do math.
Really? The horse?
That's what everyone thought. But it turned out he was actually responding to his audience's body language. They were giving away the answers without realizing it.
Wow, that's wild.
Right. It shows how much we're communicating non-verbally all the time.
It's like we got to become body language detectives.
Exactly.
Learn to decipher those cues. Now, what about visualization? I've heard that can be powerful.
Lowndes talked about it. mentally rehearsing successful interactions. Athletes do it all the time, To improve their performance, you can do it too for social situations. Imagine yourself walking into a room, making eye contact, smiling warmly, having amazing conversations. You're priming your mind, your body for success.
It's like creating a mental blueprint for a smooth interaction. I like that. Okay, now, small talk. A lot of people just dread it.
Ugh, small talk.
Lowndes actually shares a story about herself.
Yeah.
Overcoming her fear of small talk to ask someone to prom.
She did, didn't she? And she was terrified.
But she scripted the whole conversation beforehand.
Yeah, visualized it. And it gave her the confidence to actually do it.
So it's like even the most accomplished communicators can struggle with small talk. But it's a skill you can build.
Totally.
And one of her tips is this thing called the mood match. What is that?
Mood match. Oh, it's all about tuning into the other person's emotional state, meeting them where they are. Imagine walking into a meeting, everyone's celebrating a big win, and you launch into a super serious topic.
Total disconnect.
Right. You got to match your energy to the situation to build rapport.
Like finding the right tempo in music.
Exactly. You wouldn't play a fast, upbeat song during a sad scene in a movie. It wouldn't fit.
Now, prosaic with passion. What an interesting phrase.
Right. I love it. It's about taking those everyday mundane conversations and injecting them with, passion.
Give me an example.
Like someone asks, what's for lunch? You could just say salad, or you could share a funny story about the best salad you ever had.
Oh, so find the sparkle.
Exactly. Make those little exchanges more meaningful, more memorable.
I like that. Now, I'm curious about ways to spark up conversations. Lowndes has this idea of always wear a what's it.
What's it? I love that word. It's anything unique you wear or carry that starts conversations. Could be a piece of jewelry, a cool book, anything that people are curious about.
It's like you have a built-in icebreaker.
Exactly.
Takes the pressure off.
Right. And it can lead to some really interesting conversations with people you never would have met otherwise.
Okay, so what if your target doesn't have a what's it?
Ah, good point. She has a technique for that too. It's called, get this, who's that?
Who's that?
Who's that? Say you're at a party and you want to talk to someone. Ask the host to introduce you, using their name or maybe something they're wearing.
Oh, so you're leveraging your surroundings and the people you know to make a connection.
Exactly.
That's smart. Now, there's that question, where are you from? Sometimes it leads to those awkward silences.
Lowndes calls her approach, never the naked city.
Never the naked city. Tell me more.
Go beyond just stating your hometown. Share a little bit of its history, a funny story, something interesting. Give it some flavor.
So turn a potential snooze fest into something more engaging.
Exactly.
Now, what about the dreaded question, what do you do?
Yeah.
Everyone asks this, but it can be so dull.
Dull is right. But Lowndes has an answer. Never the naked Job.
So instead of blurting out your job title, you
got to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Share a story. Highlight what's cool about your work. Relate it to them.
turn your profession into a conversation starter, not ender.
Yes.
Now, introductions, so important, but people mess them up all the time.
Oh, all the time. They just mumble names and then everyone's awkwardly standing there.
Exactly.
Lowndes' solution. Never the naked introduction.
Oh, that's a good one. So what's the secret?
Add context. Mention shared interests, something they have in common, anything to get the conversation going.
Give them the springboard. Now, shifting gears a bit, Lowndes talks about a technique that top salespeople use. She calls it the swiveling spotlight.
The swiveling spotlight. I love that image.
Yeah, tell me more about it.
It's about making the other person the star of the show. You're not talking about yourself. You're asking them questions, showing genuine interest, making them feel like the most important person.
So you're a good listener, making them feel valued, heard.
Exactly. And it's interesting. Lowndes found that even those big winners, they love this. Sometimes they just want someone to listen, to be genuinely interested in them.
It's a good reminder that even the most successful people crave connection. Now, there's this technique that sounds a little funny, parroting.
Oh, parroting. It's exactly what it sounds like. You repeat the last few words your conversation partner said.
Like Pawnee want a cracker.
Well, not exactly like that.
But it's the same idea.
It's a gentle way to keep the conversation going, to encourage them to elaborate. Sometimes people just need that little nudge to really open up. Lowndes has this story about a man who used this technique even though he was super tired, and guess what? It turned out the other person had this amazing story. They just needed that little push to start talking.
So you're like a conversational midwife, helping those stories come to life.
I like that analogy.
Now, encore. That's all about making people feel special, right?
Exactly. Encore is when you ask someone to tell a story they've told before.
You mean like, I love that story, tell it again.
Yes. It flatters them, makes them feel valued, and it strengthens the connection. You're saying, I was listening, I enjoyed your company. Lowndes actually used this technique on a cruise ship captain who was, at first, very reserved. But after she asked him to retell one of his stories, he lit up. He became the life of the party.
What a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
So, a simple act of appreciation can make someone feel amazing. Now, accentuate the positive. It's more than just focusing on the good stuff, right?
It is. Accentuate the positive is about revealing a small, endearing flaw about yourself.
Really? Why would you do that?
It creates intimacy, trust. It's like you're saying, hey, I'm not perfect. And that makes you seem more genuine, more relatable.
People are drawn to that vulnerability, that authenticity.
Sure.
Okay, Lowndes talks about staying informed with a chapter called The Latest News. Don't leave home without it.
You got to stay up to date. It gives you something to talk about, makes you seem more informed, interesting. You don't have to be a news junkie, but it's good to know what's going on in the world.
Lowndes even shares a funny story about Sydney Biddlebarrows, the Mayflower madam, who told her employees to stay informed. It's proof that being well-informed is an asset in any profession.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the importance of stepping outside your comfort zone. Lowndes calls this scramble therapy.
Okay, scramble therapy. Sounds a bit chaotic, but I bet it's more about trying new things.
You got it. Trying new things, meeting new people, expanding your world. The more you experience, the more you have to talk about.
So you become a more interesting person.
Exactly.
Now, what about those conversations where you're just lost in a sea of jargon? Like you're in a room with people from a totally different field.
Oh, yeah, that can be tough. But Lowndes has some advice. She calls it learn a little gobbledygook.
Learn a little gobbledygook. I love that phrase.
It's about making an effort to understand their language, even if you're not an expert.
So you're not trying to become fluent in gobbledygook.
No, but you learn a few key terms, you ask a few good questions, it shows you're engaged, making an effort.
Makes you seem more knowledgeable, interested. Now there's this technique, bearing their hot button.
Bearing their hot button is all about finding someone's passion, that thing they could talk about for hours.
And once you find it,
you ask questions, you listen, you let them shine. It's a surefire way to connect. Lowndes tells the story about a physician's wife who learned to ask these insider medical questions, and it impressed her husband's colleagues so much. It strengthened their relationships because it showed she cared enough to learn about what they loved.
So even a little effort to understand someone's interests can go a long way.
It really can.
Now there's read their rags. It sounds a bit...
It's intrusive.
Yeah.
It's about doing your homework before you meet someone, like reading publications related to their field, their hobbies, their interests.
So you're speaking their language, understanding their world.
Exactly. It helps you avoid faux pas, too. You don't want to accidentally insult their favorite author or band.
Good point. Now, for something that sounds a bit sneaky, bluffing for bargains.
This one's fun. It's about using jargon strategically, to seem more knowledgeable, to get a better deal.
So it's not about being dishonest. It's about...
projecting confidence. Yeah. Lowndes tells this great story about an insurance broker who used this technique to deflect questions and get a much better deal for his client.
A little bit of savvy can go a long way.
It can.
Now, Lowndes has a couple of techniques related to mirroring, be a copycat, and echoing.
Mirroring is powerful. It's about subtly aligning yourself with the other person to create that connection.
So with be a copycat, you're like subtly mirroring their body language, their tone of voice.
Yes. Finding that nonverbal harmony, it makes people feel comfortable, understood.
And echoing.
That's about using their language, their specific words. It creates this feeling of we're on the same page.
Oh, that makes sense. Lowndes tells that funny story about her friend Phil, who didn't echo. He called a chalet a cabin, and it just
created this disconnect.
Yeah. Shows how important those little details can be. Now, potent imaging, that's about making your points memorable.
It is. It's about using vivid language, relatable analogies. You got to go beyond those tired cliches. Lowndes actually learned this the hard way. She gave this presentation where she relied too much on sports metaphors. And the audience just wasn't into it. Total flop. It's a reminder to know your audience, speak their language, use imagery that resonates with them.
So important.
It is. Okay, next up, anatomically correct empathizers.
That sounds interesting.
It is. This one's all about recognizing that everyone experiences the world differently through different senses. Some people are visual, some are auditory, some are kinesthetic.
So how do you use that?
Anatomically correct empathizers is about figuring out their dominant mode and then tailoring your language to match.
So for a visual person, you might say, I see your point, or that's crystal clear. For auditory, you might say, that sounds good to me.
Exactly. You're speaking their language, but you're also speaking to their senses. It creates this deeper connection, like you really get them.
That's fascinating.
It is, right.
Now, what about the premature we?
The premature we. I like that phrase already.
It's all about creating that sense of intimacy, connection, even with people you've just met.
And how do you do that?
By using we, us, our, that inclusive language.
So you're creating this instant sense of togetherness, even though you might be strangers.
Exactly. It's like you're saying, hey, we're on the same team here, even though you might have just met.
I love that.
Me too.
Yeah.
It subtly shifts the whole dynamic from, me versus you to we're in this together.
Powerful stuff.
It is. And it can really accelerate that bonding process, make people feel closer to you faster.
So subtle, but so effective. Now, what about this technique, instant history?
Instant history. I love this one. It's all about finding those little moments, those memorable moments from your first encounter with someone.
Like what? It could be a shared joke, something funny you both noticed, even a little mishap.
Oh, okay.
And then later on, you reference that moment. It creates this instant inside joke, this shared history, even if you just met.
Lowndes talks about this quack moment she had with a guy named Daryl. Turned into a running joke and really cemented their friendship.
It's like you're saying, I remember you. I valued our interaction. Those little things matter.
They really do. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about compliments. Lowndes has this whole section on praise versus flattery. She really emphasizes sincerity.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be genuine.
Right, you can't just throw out empty compliments.
People see right through that.
They do. So what's the secret?
It's about acknowledging their strengths, talents, accomplishments, but in a sincere, specific way.
So instead of just saying, you're so smart, you might say.
I was really impressed by your presentation today. You have a knack for making complex topics easy to understand.
That's so much better. Okay, now there's this really clever technique called grapevine glory. I'm intrigued.
This is one of my favorites. Instead of praising someone directly, you tell a mutual friend how much you admire them.
Oh, I see. So the compliment gets back to them indirectly.
Exactly. It's like this little whisper of praise that travels through the grapevine.
I bet that feels amazing to hear. Like, oh, wow, they said that about me.
Right. It's more powerful because it comes from a trusted source.
Sneaky, but brilliant.
Well, it is, isn't it?
Okay, what about those times when you're interacting with, a VIP, someone super successful? It's easy to get flustered, right?
Oh, totally. Like starstruck.
Exactly. Lowndes has some advice for how to handle those situations.
She does. She calls it big shots don't slobber.
Big shots don't slobber. I love it. So basically, don't act like a
fangirl.
Yes.
Treat them with respect, be professional, and engage with them on their level.
So instead of gushing over their fame, you might
compliment their recent work, show that you're genuinely interested in what they do.
Right. Treat them like a human being, not a celebrity.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, they are just people. They appreciate genuine connection,
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, gratitude.
Ugh, such an important topic.
It is. Lowndes talks about the power of a thank you, but she has this technique called never the naked thank you.
Right. A simple thank you is nice, but it can be so much more meaningful if you add a little something to it.
Give me an example.
Instead of just saying thank you might say, thank you for being so patient with me, or thank you for going above and beyond to help.
Oh, I see. You're making it personal.
Exactly. You're showing that you were paying attention, that you genuinely appreciate their effort, and it makes the other person feel so much more valued.
It's those little touches that make all the difference.
They really do.
It really can make someone's day, you know, that extra bit of effort. Now, we talked about instant history in the last part, creating that feeling of a shared past, even if you've just met someone.
Right, finding those little moments to connect over. But Lowndes takes it a step further.
Okay, how so?
She talks about actively creating those moments, on purpose.
Oh, interesting.
It's about being present, noticing those little details, the shared jokes, those funny observations, maybe even a slight mishap. And then you weave those into future conversations. Like, remember when that waiter almost tripped?
So it's like you're intentionally building that sense of shared history. I like that. Makes the connection stronger. Now, shifting gears a bit, compliments. They can be so powerful but also so tricky.
Oh, totally. Lowndes has this whole chapter called The Power of Praise, The Folly of Flattery.
So what's the difference?
Flattery is empty, insincere. Praise is genuine, from the heart. And it has to be specific.
Okay, specific how?
Instead of just saying, "You're amazing," you might say, "I was so impressed with your presentation today. The way you explained those complex ideas, it was just brilliant."
Oh, so you're pointing out something specific that you admired. That makes sense.
Exactly. It shows you were paying attention, and it makes the compliment so much more meaningful.
Now, what about this technique, grapevine glory? Sounds a little sneaky.
It is a bit sneaky, but in a good way, I think.
Okay, tell me more.
It's when you praise someone indirectly through a mutual friend. So you tell your friend how much you admire that person, knowing that they'll pass it along.
Oh, so it's like secondhand praise.
Exactly. And, it can be even more powerful that way.
Why is that?
Because it comes from a trusted source,
Yeah.
It's not the person themselves trying to toot their own horn. It's someone else singing their praises.
That's a really interesting approach. Okay, now let's talk about those times when you're interacting with someone super successful, like a VIP, a celebrity. It's easy to get flustered in those situations.
Totally.
Starstruck.
Yeah. Any advice on how to handle that?
Lowndes has got us covered, as always. She calls this one, big shots don't slobber.
I love that phrase.
Me too. It's about treating them with respect, just like you would anyone else. Don't fawn over them. Don't act like a groupie.
So don't ask for an autograph. Don't gush about their latest movie. Right. Instead, compliment their work. Ask thoughtful questions, engage with them on a professional level.
Remember, they're human beings just like us.
Yeah.
Now, last but certainly not least, gratitude.
Oh, gratitude is so important.
It really is. And Lowndes talks about how to express it effectively with a technique she calls never the naked thank you.
I love that. It's about going beyond a simple thank you and adding a little something extra.
Like what?
Instead of just saying thanks for the gift, you might say thanks for the gift. I love the color. It's perfect. Or instead of thanks for dinner, you might say thanks for dinner. That pasta was incredible.
So you're being specific about what you're grateful for.
Exactly. It makes your gratitude so much more meaningful, more personal. It shows you're paying attention.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today. This deep dive into Leil Lowndes' How to Talk to Anyone has been incredible.
It really has.
We've explored so many techniques and insights that can help us become better communicators, build stronger relationships, and navigate those tricky social situations with more confidence and grace.
From the power of a smile to the art of listening, to the importance of finding common ground and expressing sincere gratitude, Lowndes gives us a roadmap to more meaningful and fulfilling interactions.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to encourage everyone listening to think about their own communication style. What are your strengths? What are some areas you'd like to improve?
That's a great point. And, even if you just pick one technique from this deep dive and start using it, you'll be amazed at the difference it can make.
Small changes can have a big impact. So go out there, practice these techniques, and keep those conversations flowing. Until next time, happy connecting.